Welcome back to another edition of the Water Matters podcast. We should call this, this is like an interim episode. It's just me here. I'm Matt. Thanks for listening. We'll call this like a 1.5, episode 1.5. So hopefully you've listened to episode number 1. That was the original episode, Water Matters, myself and Tim Smedley, author of The Last Drop, discussing all things water management and setting the scene for what will be this Water Matters podcast and newsletter platform to educate people and bring the conversation of water to the surface, get more people talking about it. And this episode is being recorded and brought to you today because today is an important day for the Water Matters team. We have just issued our first email broadcast this morning. It's Wednesday, the 30th of October, and Water Wednesday's number 1 edition has just been emailed out to people. And so I wanted to share this with you. This is more for the audio-only listeners to our podcast. It is, of course, being recorded and shared on YouTube for anyone that does prefer to watch it on video. But it's safe to say this will be more of a audio version than or certainly better via audio than video, because occasionally I'm going to refer to the iPad here because I will be reading some of the points that we have shared in Water Wednesday's number 1, the first edition of the email digital newsletter. Because if you're driving and you're listening, and perhaps you've just listened to episode 1 of the Water Matters podcast, then I would like to share with you details of the email that we broadcast this morning so that you might be encouraged when you are back in front of your laptop or phone to subscribe to the newsletter, to make sure that you stay in touch and stay tuned in and dialed in to all of the content that we are sharing on a fortnightly basis. Although, having sent and emailed out the broadcast this morning, I'm very tempted. The more we get involved with the news, updates, stories, the conversations around what's going on in the world of sustainable water management, I'm very tempted to make it, especially over the next few weeks, perhaps maybe a weekly Water Wednesdays email broadcast, because there's a lot to discuss, there's a lot to share, and so it might happen even more often, just to over-deliver slightly. But if you are driving, or if you are on a bike, or if you are running, or whatever you get up to when you're listening to your podcast, then what you might not have seen if you haven't yet subscribed to the newsletter version of Water Matters, which you can do by visiting watermatters.life. You've simply just got to put your email address in there. It's very simple. We don't even need your name, or your definitely don't need any other details. So literally, email address goes in there, and then every other Wednesday as a minimum, but perhaps every Wednesday occasionally, you will receive an email broadcast bringing you news, stories, keeping you up to date with whatever is going on in the world of water management. And so today, our original kind of first subscribers, they received Water Wednesday's number 1, which said, in a week when the government launches a water sector review in an attempt to clean up the country's waterways amid public anger over sewage spills, we've got articles galore for you to catch up on what's been happening in the world of sustainable water management. Our featured article from guest author Tim Smedley focuses on how rainy England can have a water problem, which is increasingly hard to believe, especially after the wettest 18 months on record. However, it does. So this article is a must-read for anyone keen to learn more about the challenges and potential solutions. And then there is a link to How Can Rainy England Have a Water Problem, which is an article that Tim Smedley has written specifically for the Water Matters platform, and goes into detail about the irony of how, I'm looking out the window now. It's not throwing it down with rain, but it's certainly damp and drizzly out there. Which has been pretty much a consistent thing happening all of 2024, let's be honest. So how is it possible that England can also have water scarcity issues and shortages? But of course it does, and we do, and we have to do something about it. So a very, very interesting and helpful article that is shared there by Tim. It also goes on to say you'll also find a recap of the Environment Agency's Flood Action Week, which took place from the 14th to the 20th of October, which is full of useful advice to anyone worried about flood risk to their property. And it is actually what they did as part of that event, and what we've shared on the watermatters.life website is a summary of this Flood Action Week, the Environment Agency's week, all about raising awareness and focusing on how to minimize the impact, the devastating impact, let's face it, of floods. And so there is a real step-by-step process shared within that article, 8 steps that anyone can do, anyone who has a property in a flood risk area that really wants to take action, from checking their flood risk to signing up for flood warnings, to preparing a flood kit, to the things that can be done to safeguard your property, to increase its flood resilience, to plan your household's flood response. What should you consider when you're out on the road and kind of taking extra care when driving through floods? It refers to property insurance with flood protection and how you can stay informed and be ready to act. So for those worried about that and in that situation, it's a really sort of practical, helpful example and an article to read that focuses on a lot of content that was focused on and discussed throughout that week from the 14th to 20th of October. There's also a link to this sort of overview of the government's water sector review, which will explain what that is. There's been several articles in the news about it just this week, and so how the focus is going to be on reducing leakage, decreasing per capita water use. So the aim is to reach for the usage of water per person per day to get that down to 110 litres per person per day, which is currently we've referred to it on this podcast on other episodes, at around about 150. I think it's officially at 143 litres per person per day is the average water use, but the aim is to get that down to 110. It also talks about how water is being considered in terms of building new reservoirs and desalination plants. It also shares information about planning for drought resilience. It refers to the jaws of death and what's being done to make sure that as we approach the timeline to kind of 2050, that we are not walking into a situation where water demand outstrips the supply. It's a real overview. And it is. There's also links in there to refer back to some of the other articles that have been shared in the press this week about the government's water sector review. So some interesting stuff there. And then finally, it ends with, as a subscriber, you can also be the first to listen to episode 1 of the Water Matters podcast, which is being officially released this Friday, the 1st of November. But it has already been shared with the subscribers to the digital newsletter. And so there's a link to listen to it, which it's available on, as you'll know, you're listening to it, me right now, on your favorite podcast platform. And also there's a link to watch it on YouTube. So that is for the first discussion that I had with Tim Smedley to bring the subject of water to the masses, hopefully. And so, yes, there's a link to that. And finally, a link to share refer the email newsletter with other people. And if anyone does that, then you've only got to share it with one other person, and we will send you, if you would like to receive it, a copy of Tim's book, The Last Drop, which is all about solving the world's water crisis. And then at the bottom of the email, if you do become a subscriber, there is a chance for you to give us some feedback, and feedback is very helpful to us in these early days. So we would like to know whether it's great, whether it's good, or whether it needs some work. You can see all this if you go to watermatters.life, enter email address. Over the first 3 to 4 days, you will receive a daily email telling you more about what you've just subscribed to and how it works, and a real proper introduction to what to expect as a subscriber and part of our Water Masters community. But then after that, you'll just only receive one email a week maximum, perhaps even fortnightly. On Water Wednesdays, you'll get these updates, which will be as similar to what I've just read out to you there, a short email giving you an overview of what's happened, what's gone on between editions, and links to articles and content that has been provided with either from us, the Water Masters team, or our guest authors, people like Tim, and others that we are involving in this journey with us to share lots and lots of Water Masters and hopefully bring you interesting facts, figures, stories, case studies, and inspirational sort of articles that you can read to do the three things that we have talked about before, which is be inspired, learn what's going on in the world around you, especially in relation to water, to then start to talk to other people about it, to mention it around the dinner table or, to your friends, family, colleagues, to actually bring the subject of water to the surface. And then to step 3, when you're ready and if you want to start to actually take action yourself, to either start doing things that reduces your own personal usage of water from that 143 to 150 sort of average per person per day down towards the 110 or even lower by using rainwater instead, or just conserving water wherever possible, and a whole host of other things that you can do to help with the water situation in the UK. So that's it. That's for today's episode. That's what I wanted to share with you. I would encourage you, if you've just listened to that, then thank you for listening. But please do, if you've not done it already, visit watermatters.life, enter your email, subscribe, get the email newsletters, then share them with other people as well. And please let us know what you think. Keep providing feedback and comments, because we're on all the main social platforms now, sharing the content and starting to involve other people like yourself, in the conversation around Water Matters. And we look forward to bringing you even more. The next episode will be coming to you shortly. Episode 2 is an overview of the Water Matters platform, me and my colleague Catherine. And then episode 3 is already lined up as well, where Tim Smedley is also bringing more educational content specifically around flooding, actually, in episode 3. So lots coming your way. But thank you for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, please like, please share, please subscribe. And we look forward to being in touch very soon. Safe journeys. And thanks for listening. See you soon.